to a special show. This is actually a test show. I haven't come back to do more videos. I'm talking about a few more weeks off before I start making more videos. But this is a kind of test thing I'm doing because I've set up things. I've now got a light for my camera, my webcam. I've got a new stand for my microphone. I'm still working it out. I think it might be a bit, might not be perfect yet, but I'll be testing it out and getting it ready. But I am working at it. So I'm just trying to make sure I can do a decent broadcast. I'm doing a webcam. And when you look at this, you can see my little light in my eyes. I'm using my old microphone thing for to hold it up. I'm actually going to do some videos like this and some videos with the old camera set up with the green screen next year or this year. I'm just going to vary it, see what I feel like. Sometimes I feel like doing it one way, sometimes I feel like doing it another way. So I'll do it the way I feel like doing it at the time, which is probably the best thing. But at least I'm doing a light for this, but it makes it a lot easier to actually light and get everything a decent level of competency. Because the last couple of months, the lighting has been a bit weird. It's switched from pitch black to very bright within a video. I didn't dare close my blinds, but now I've got a light now, it's a bit better. My plans for the channel are pretty much the same as before. I've got a couple of videos I know I'm doing Herzog. I already announced that before. So that'll be going forward. I kind of stole that from the Soldier Ronin, by the way. He was going to do it for a while and he never did, and I said, "Are you guys going to do it? Because I've been dying to do this." And oops. So he's doing Kawasaki one, and I'm doing Herzog. So I'm doing Herzog this year. I'm going to finish the Palma season off. I've only got a few more films I want to do of his individually, and then I'll do a finale overview of the other ones. Because I've covered quite a few. I want to get through the rest of them now, so I'll be doing that. I've got other ones, the Maliks and stuff that I'll be doing as well, so there'll be a bunch of films. And there's a lot of Asian films to go through too, so there is a lot. I mean, I've just bought Memories of Murder, so I'm looking forward to watching that, and I have a few other films come through that I'm looking forward to, so that should be good. I mean, hopefully I'm coming into the microphone properly. As I'm trying to work it out. So today, as well, we're just talking about the channel, what I'm doing, which is I'm doing pretty much what I did before. I've been doing techie stuff, but I'm doing pretty much what I did before. I thought I would actually do best films watched in 2020, because, as I said during the 2020 list, my favourite films I watched in 2020 weren't really the ones that were released then. I mean, if you looked at the top 5, they were favourites. The rest, even in that top level, were films I liked. But I wouldn't say were masterpieces or anything, they were just films I liked. The top 5 were really the proper list. And I just thought, I saw more films from around the world, from everywhere, that were from 2020. A lot of films I'm going to see that were from 2020, I probably haven't seen yet, because it's half a whole lot of stuff. So that was the issue for me that I'm trying to deal with. And just, I'm always going to be a bit behind. I don't live in the big cinemas or anything, so my access is never that great. So I do my best as I go. So I thought I'd actually talk about the films I've seen this year that I really adored. But it's going to be a brief list. I've done videos about a lot of them anyway. I'll just say where you can find the full version. Hopefully this will get you interested in going and find the full video and, watch the video. Because there's some of these films that I've done videos for and very few have watched them. I think sometimes it's a case of people don't want to watch them because they haven't seen the film yet. It's like, I'm not the person who doesn't give spoilers away. So I know why in some way, why some of these films don't get good views. So I thought I'd point them out here as well, maybe get interested in watching them, maybe then go and see the video. Okay, I've kind of had a rule, because I'm working with certain directors, it's Shun Sono and Tsukamoto, you can only use 2 of the films only have two films. So when I watch a lot of films for a director, I can only quote two of his films. Otherwise, it'll be a Sono, Tsukamoto. You know, they would just dominate the list. So I'm just giving myself two. But I'm actually cheating here because it has about two um, box sets or two individual, two basic DVD releases or Blu-ray releases. It can be a box set, but it can be like a release that have two films in it. And that's how I'm cheating a little bit. Especially this first one. So this is the big first one. It's from Chris Marker. Because I got the Sansolio La Jetty films. And these were the films I watched. These are the first films I watched last year. In 2020. And since one of them dealt with the end of the world, La Jetty, I was ahead of the curve. You know. Not to brag, I was ahead of the curve. And Sansolio was all about communication, which was also a big theme of last year, you know, or lack of communication, of how do we communicate with each other, things like that. All about communication, that's what the films were about. I recommend you watch the films. My video on it is pretty good too. I definitely see the films, because the films are amazing. But the other Chris Marker one is The Owl Legacy, which is all about the Greek legacy, the Greek world, the Greek mythology, the Greek social structures that actually came through to set our civilization, that have actually through and created civilization over the years, and what we actually owe to the Greeks and their way of seeing the world. Because Chris Marker was always interested in, he was a great director, was always interested in different things. He's another director I'm plugging in more videos on this year about some of his other films. But The Owl Legacy was like a 10-part epic, so doing a video on that took some time to watch all the episodes and things. But I've got his collection of a lot of his films. The BFI release, I think it's BFI released it or something else. Doesn't matter. I've seen them already, but I need to rewatch them to do videos on them. So I'll do that, and I'll do more videos on the Chris Marker stuff. Because you should really try and see his stuff, because they are amazing. They are really something. These are the kind of films that everyone should see and no one ever sees. So, and they cover so many decades. So he's never trapped within the ideology of any one generation, which makes him really good, a terrific director. Next is another double bill, which is Harakiri and The Human Condition. Done videos on both of these. I did both of these early on in the year. I'm not going to try and butcher the director's name. Go and watch the videos to see me do that. These are two masterpieces. Human Condition is another epic. It's 9 hours, 3 hours per part. And it's all about Japan the war. And Harakiri is all about honour system within the samurai world. Both are masterpieces. These are just geniuses. Genius films. Watch my videos. Watch the films. Watch other people's videos on the film. These films seem to be very popular this year. But I think because everyone had time off to actually watch them. I think a lot of people are watching these films just now, so definitely watch these films. They are great. They are just full-on masterpieces. If you don't like these, you don't like taste, basically. I mean, some films I can indulge and say maybe it wasn't to your taste. And these ones are like, no, these are masterpieces. You don't like these, you got a problem. You are seriously weird. Okay, now I'm going to some two Richard Lester films. Another thing I should say, right, is I've excluded any films I watch that I watch a lot over the years, like that are regular films, like stuff like Big Trouble in Little China or Die Hard or Terminator. Films I'd watch a lot as entertainment, not in this list, because I watch them all the time. So, like once a year, Pacific Rim is another one or Mad Max Fury Road. These are films I watch like almost once a year or once every few years. So they shouldn't be really on the list. These are more films that I haven't watched for a while, so it was a nice chance to watch them again or to see them the first time. These were films that they really had an impact on me in 2020. So two Richard Lesters, Robin and Marion, which I'd seen before and I'd highly rated before, but rewatched them this year, really gave an appreciation of how good this film is. It's just stunningly good. All about myth and all about what happens when you outgrow your myth and how your myth can become a weight on your shoulders and how kind of tiring it can be It's based on old Robin Hood and Old Maid Marian, and it's just a wonderful film. There's also Juggernaut, which is a bomb in a boat movie. But don't worry, it's not Speed 2. This is the good bomb in a boat movie. It's got fun character actors like Richard Harris, David Hemmings, Anthony Hopkins, a bunch of other character actors you've ever seen. There's Roy Kinnear's in the boat as well. It's wonderful because it's like it's half mad bomber movie and half critique of the British Empire that's flailing, and it's about people stuck in a boat and it's really a bad summer holiday for them because the weather's terrible. There's nothing to do, and there's a bomb in the boat that might kill them. It's just the ultimate nightmare. Then all these people try to stop the bomb. So you've got the thriller elements, you've got the social satire, all mixed in. You've got the whole idea of bureaucracy and big business and how they'll throw people over the side basically to keep their money. It's a wonderful film and very highly recommended. Now we have Yesterday's Enemy, which is in one of the Hammer boxes. I think it's number 3 or 4. It's one of those two. And it's all about the British Army during World War II in the Pacific. Stars Stanley Baker. And it's all about being in a situation where you're not going to survive, or highly likely you're going to survive, and you still try and do your duty, and you just crumble, and what do you actually do? And it's all the idea of duty as a soldier and duty as a person, and it actually portrays like both sides as human, and it just shows it as like, to them, like, they're in a war just now, but in about 5 years there won't be a war, and they'll just be dealing with each other again as normal people. So it's the idea of the extremities of human nature between war and peace, and what do you do in a war, and how it can really affect you, how it can really ruin your soul. This is made by Hammer, and it was based on a play, and it was a extremely well made film. It was one of those films Hammer made in between the big horror smashes, just as a prestige project, and it really worked. It was a really wonderful film, and it's one of those ones you should really try and see. It's just wonderful. Val Guest directed it during a time when Val Guest was doing some really good stuff. I mean, as a director, there was a kind of journeyman director, but he had a period in the late 50s, early 60s, where he was doing some interesting stuff, like they did the Afghan Fire, the two Quatermass films, and this one. There's Cabin Blood Island, which is a bit more tacky, but it's still pretty enjoyable. This is the period when he was actually had some ambition before it often just did anything, basically. But that's a really good film. Now we're going to, I gave us only one choice of the Bergman collection because I've been doing a series on my channel, Ronan Nazarene podcast about the Bergman films. So I just chose one because there's plenty of really great films to cover, like Persona, Seven Seal, all that stuff. I thought, my list, because I haven't really been covering much channel, I thought, I'm going to myself one to see, and that's it. I'll really make it hard myself. So I chose The Silence. I also did a Richard Lester season as well on that channel, or some other season. I look at all his films. I chose 2 of him. But I chose one, which is The Silence, which is a terrific film. Go watch the discussion on it. We went into a lot of detail about it. Ronan Nazarene podcast. We do some really cool stuff about different directors. We just did one in Sergio Leone. So we choose The Silence as kind of like an advert for our channel. But Silence is wonderful, but it's one of the films that's less well known of the Bergman films. So that's why I'm choosing that one over Persona or something, because I adore this film, but no one really likes it that much compared to some of his bigger hits. So that's one of the reasons I chose that one. Now we're going to the Sion Sono, which I've watched most of his films this year. I've watched so many of his films. So try to cut it down to 2. It's hard, and it could change if I did this at a different time. I mean, there's stuff like Anti-Porno that are amazing. There's stuff like Tokyo Vampire Hotel, which is insane. There's all sorts of stuff, and The Western Star. You know, it's Cold Fish. There's so much good ones, but I'm choosing these 2, which is Why Don't You Play in Hell, which is a bizarre gangster movie which also has a lot of filmmaking involved, and it's just crazy. It's hard to describe. It's one of those films you just have to see it and just do not know anything about it. Just try and know as little about it as possible and just experience it. the best way I can say, because you will not believe where this film goes. It's one of those films you hear like, yeah, sure. And you see a film and it's like, oh. This one delivers on that promise. And then The Forest of Love, the deep cut, which is, you can find on Netflix. Netflix has it just now. It paid for it, so it should be there for when Netflix is there. It's a long version of a project. There's also a film version. I've never seen the film version. I just watched the long miniseries. It's wonderful. It's got some of the craziest characters, some of the craziest motivations. It is wonderful and weird and strange, and it's hard to, in other words, do not know much about it when you go into it. Just go watch it. Just go see it. You'll be surprised. You'll be amazed at some of the stuff they do. It is truly stunning. Okay, I'll now go to my other obsession of this year, which is Shinya Tsukamoto. I saw a lot of his films too. A lot of films that could have made the list, like Gemini or, Killing, or Fires in the Plane, the remake. I rewatched Tetsuo 1 and 2 and 3 actually. I watched a lot of his films. There's two that jumped out as my two favourites, which is Kotoko and Vital. Kotoko is about a woman who has mental health issues, and you just basically inside her head as you see what she goes through, trying to survive a day, then a week, then a month, and what it's like for someone with mental health issues to try and survive in the world. And how do you trust people, and how do you deal with real life, and how do you deal with responsibilities? And it's, as someone who has mental health issues, this one felt personal to me as well, but it's also just a wonderful film, just terrifically made. Vital is a film with grief. It's very unconventional. It's about a guy who is in a crash with his girlfriend. She dies, he doesn't. And he loses his memory, but the way to try and get his memory back is to try and go back into old studies, which has to be a doctor. So he starts trying to become a doctor. And he starts to really get good at it. And then they have to do an examination of a body and cut it up and actually see the whole body ticks. And to do that, the body gets his ex-girlfriend, which obviously wouldn't happen in real life, but it's just a metaphor. It's a wonderful metaphor for him getting his memories back slowly but surely as he does this. And it's all about physicality, all about the body and the soul, and how does grief really affect you, and how does grief affect a family, and how complicated it actually all is. It's just a wonderful film. I'd highly recommend you see it as soon as possible. It's hard to get hold of, but it is wonderful. It is really wonderful. Okay, now I'm going to Buster Keaton. I saw quite a lot of Buster Keaton this year, but I've limited it. Obviously, it's the only way you do is limit it. So I chose two films that are less well known that came out, are not the most famous ones. One's Seven Chances, about a guy who he comes into money, but he has to get married by the end of the day to actually, get the money, because the person who left the money to him wants him to be a responsible member of society. And the thing is, he's in love with someone, but he messes the whole thing up, so now he has to find another bride before the end of the day. And everything goes to hell. And because it's Buster Keaton, utterly useless, it's just joke after joke after joke. And it's so many jokes, it's like, bizarrely, this was not a project Keaton wanted to do. It was based on a play, he didn't want to do it. But then when he got into it, he really created something very unique. And it's the film with the famous image of Keaton getting chased by all these brides, like hundreds of brides chase them through a town. It's just wonderful, it's hilarious. But it's not just the bit of the brides, it's the whole film of all these weird ways how he managed to mess up different proposals. It's just hilarious, just Keaton just been insanely wonderful. There's also Our Hospitality, his other choice, which is another topical one. It's based on the fact that his family came from the south. Them and another family had a rivalry. His family moved away once his father was killed, and he has to go back to claim his birthright. They find out he's a member of the other family. They want to kill him, and he somehow managed to get in their house, and because of the hospitality, they cannot kill them in their house, so he has to find ways to stay in the house to avoid getting killed. It's just wonderfully weird. It goes into strange places. It goes into a lot of slapstick, a lot of really clever jokes. Like, Keaton's really good if he's stuck with a setup that limits him. I mean, there are other films and collections coming out this year that I saw, but these are the one, two that I really enjoyed because there was some real cleverness within what could be a very limited setup. Next one's almost a cheat because I have watched this a lot, but I haven't watched it for a few years till this year again, which is To Have and Have Not. It's only one I could get away with from Howard Hawks because the other ones I've watched enough that I can say that one. You can't put in the list because you've watched it too many times. This one I hadn't seen for a while, so I could put in the list. It's wonderful. It's Bogart, Lauren Bacall. It's based on the Hemingway story. It's just wonderful. It's movie stardom 101. It's about bravery under fire. It's about trying to survive in an industry that's not very kind to you. There was another version of the film, the Slaughter Road in the Doors, that was made in the 50s, but I never really couldn't get into it all. So there's different versions of this story. I adore this one. This is my version of the film, the version of this story. I just adore this. I could hardly watch this anytime and just enjoy watching it and just soaking up the atmosphere. It's just so good. And it's such a wonderful way to do like a movie star film, really. So that's To Have and Have Not. The next one is very different. It's called Dear Zachary, a letter to his son about his father. I covered this in a video that nobody watched. This is my second chance to try and get people interested. You have to see this film. It is so good. It's so dark. It's so disturbing. It's one of those films you don't want to say much about, to be honest. It's about a guy who died, and the wife and his lover got pregnant before he died, and she killed him. So the family of the dead man have to deal with her so they can see their grandson. And it's really dark, and it's all about how weird life can be and how people can do the most horrible things and how obsession can be and how one destructive person can cause so much damage. It is just a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. It's really brutal. You'll be disturbed by this one. This is really something. I'm going on a completely different tangent. Again, we're going to go back to entertainment. We're going for Alligator, which is a Louis Teague film written by John Sayles, stars Robert Foster. I hadn't seen this one for years, and I was nicely surprised when I watched it again how good it was, how perfect it is as a little B movie. It's just what it is. It's a B movie about a giant alligator, but it doesn't forget to have characters. Like Robert Foster is the main character. He's a bit rebellious. You've seen that type before, but Foster plays it really well, and John Sayles has a lot to do, and he created this character that's really fascinating. So you'd watch him even though there was no alligator. You know, the alligator's a plus, but he's so interesting that it's really enjoyable to watch. And it's just a fun movie. It's just so much fun. It's a B movie, it knows what it is. It delivers the B movie scares, but it also has really good characters. There's a lot of supporting characters who are all really enjoyable. You know, and you like people who get killed, and there's other people who you don't like, who you enjoy seeing getting killed in the film. It knows exactly what it's doing. It is just wonderful. Okay, now I'm going to go for Hiroshima, which is a story about the atomic bomb hitting Hiroshima and the aftermath of how it affected people and how people basically see the attack taking place, and you see the damage and you see the devastation for the first hour, and then you go forward in time, you see the devastation 10 years later when they've rebuilt the city, but people still have the damage done to them by the dropping of the bombs, and how people find it hard on their lives, and how some people are damaged by losing people that were very important to them, and how they can't really move on. It's a very difficult, very moving film. It's not the greatest film we ever see, but it's very sincere and it really hits home. You know, I mean, there's some bits that are a bit more conventional you'd like, but because of that conventionality at times, it remains honest. So even though there's things you wish it had gone a bit stranger, it doesn't matter. It's still a very, very good film. Okay, now we're going for Graveyard of Honor, the original. I mean, there is a remake by Takeshi Miike, which was good, but the original was really disturbing and really strange, and it's been this self-destructive gangster. It's from the director of Battle Royale and Battles for Honor and Humanity. It's one of these films. This is probably his most nihilistic film. This is really about the title actually sums up what's going on. It's truly a graveyard of honourable intentions. It's someone who has no intention of following them and who has very nihilistic views and will use people and destroy people who are anywhere near him, and how people get sucked into dealing with him, trying to deal with him as a normal person when he's not a normal person. It deals with all sorts of stuff about how the Japanese were very racist to any Chinese who were in the area, the American occupation after the war, how that spread out over time, the different gangsters and different political aspirations they had. It deals with a lot of social stuff, but also deals with this guy causing havoc constantly and just destroying any chance he has to make a normal life for himself. It is just so wonderful. It's really shocking. You never quite believe one person could cause this much trouble. And it's just very haunting. It's not a film you forget. Okay, now I'm going to two Peter Watkins films, Punishment Park and La Commune. Punishment Park is about it's a film about social, how people, how fascist society use social means to punish people and send people to a park to say, you can either go to jail or do the Punishment Park. And in terms of there's no way in Punishment Park, no way out of it. It is try to torture people who they disagree with, and it's all about how a conservative fascist government can just destroy their enemies mentally before you send them to jail. And it is just a look at what happens when the government gets too much power and is not questioned. And it's also about different value systems hitting against each other. One value system has way too much power and not enough roadblocks to abusing the power. But it also shows you their point of view of this is what they see as a valid point of view. And you see what the people who oppose them feel as a valid point of view. And the people who oppose them are willing to suffer for their ideals as well. So it's like they're really, really stubborn. So it's about what happened in the 60s. It's also what happens nowadays as well, where people have very idealistic reasons and they are very, very easily broken by corrupt systems around them. And La Commune is basically about a Paris commune in 1780, where basically, because of the economic strife and economic exploitation of the workers, they create this communist system within Paris that completely goes against what the capitalists and the royalists and all the different people in France want to back up. Not that the royalists had a very revolution, but there was a part of society who still had all those old-fashioned points of view, the very conservative points of view, that still stuck to the good manners, the good this, the good that, and excluded looking at the reality of exploitation. And it's about how the commune rose and then fell in itself, and how the mismanagement, incompetence, as well as outside forces try to destroy it. So it's a look at communism, how communism starts and how it collapses, and it's a very interesting film, and I think it's 5-6 hours long. It takes time to get there, and most actors are amateurs or just actors they found that were not well known. And it is really wonderful. It's paced extremely well. You really get a feeling of all the different personalities, points of view. You get a feeling of the tragedy of all the people who fall under this tragic situation. So that's another film I saw. Two films I saw this year that were both wonderful. I'd seen Punishment Park before, but not for a while. So I'd never seen it as good as that on Blu-ray either. Okay, we're going towards the end now, so don't worry. For a few dollars more, it's another one I covered on the Wooden Dazzling podcast. I can't really bring up most of the Leone films because I've watched them too often. This one's my favourite, but I don't watch it that often for some reason. I kind of tend to want to make sure it remains like a sacred thing, so don't overdo it for this one. Because it's one of the Man Maloney films was really Lee Van Cleef's film. He's a central character in lots of ways. He's going to influence the plot more than Eastwood does. It's really about his revenge. And it is wonderful because he's a real need to take down Volante, who's the villain and who's crazy. And it's really a fight between those two, and Eastwood's kind of in the middle of it. And it's just wonderful and very emotional. It sets up everything that Leone was going to do with Once Upon a Time in the West. You know, that kind of emotional, grandiose thing. Because, I mean, Good and Bad and Ugly is less emotional in this film because it's more of a big, epic, dark comedy. And then Once Upon a Time in the West kind of brought the emotion and the dark comedy together. So that's was the emotional one that was fused with Good and Bad and Ugly in some ways for Once Upon a Time in the West. But for me, this is still kind of pure one. So go watch that podcast. It's really good. I explain in detail why I think it's the best one, or why it's my favourite at least. Okay, with To Be or Not To Be by Ernst Lubitsch. This is a terrific movie about actors being vain and horrible and charming and trying to survive under Nazi rule and trying to get a traitor caught and stop him from causing damage to the resistance and try and get out of Poland during time of war and occupation. So it's a bit of resistance, and it's also about actors being horribly vain and selfish, and it's just wonderful because it takes a lot of risks and is really scathing about the Nazis and actors. It's just hilarious. It's just a really funny film. Just go watch it. Everybody in it's good. Jack Benny's the lead. Carol Lombard's is Coley playing his wife, and they just have a ball playing against two the biggest hams imaginable. So it's wonderful. Next is The Man from Nowhere. This is the one I saw late in the year because I kept on hearing about it through different podcasts that Who's Touch a Film seemed to be was hosting a lot of podcasts over the year on his channel with lots of people involved. I was currently hearing about Man from Nowhere. It kept on coming up. It was like, I really need to see this film. I kept on hearing about it. So I finally watched it before the end of the year, and it was wonderful. It really delivered. It kind of has that kind of Melville, Jean-Pierre Melville feel to it. The kind of the Lord figure who's almost too pure for the world. He has to deal with corruption. He has to find a way through corruption. But it's also got him dealing with a child, protecting a child, and you start to see the damage was done to him by life. So it's a very cinematic film. And it's very simple, but it's also just the way it's done is just almost perfect. So it's a beautiful film. Just try and see it. It is just so good. But finally, the final film of the year that I watched, of the films that weren't released last year, but I enjoyed probably more than most of the films released, was 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I saw in 4K. It looks amazing in 4K. It's the reason to buy a 4K TV and player. Is this one? This one looks gorgeous. And it just reminded me how good 2001 is. Another one I've done a video on. Go see the video. It's great though. The film is amazing. The film is just so wonderful. It looks stunning. You get a feeling of seeing the cinema more than you would even Blu-ray because of the detail you see, the models and the details in the sets. I just feel you can see almost everything in this new transfer. It is just stunning. Just amazingly stunning. And it just reminds you how good the film is and how complicated and how strange and personal it is, because the ending of 2001 is just a heartbreaker and a weird existential way of looking at the universe, but and it's not a heartbreaker in something tragic happens, it's about the hope of the universe, of our place in the universe, or potential place in the universe, if we actually get beyond our stupidities. So that's my list. Hope you enjoyed it. This was just a little extra as I did my technical test. I thought it'd be quite fun to do this little list of films I'd watched this year that I thought were stunning. And it's also almost a summing up of the year for what the videos I did this year. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back in a few weeks with the start of my new set of videos. But for now, that's me. Bye.